I call the Assistant Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Deputy Speaker, for 11 months the world has stood witness to the awful violence and suffering that has occurred and is occurring in Israel and in Gaza. This horrifying and brutal instalment of a long-running conflict began with a barbaric attack by Hamas on civilians in Israel, which included the taking of hostages, many of whom are still not free. Since that time, the government of Israel has inflicted carnage on a trapped and defenceless civilian population in Gaza. More than 40,000 civilians have died, the majority of whom are women and children. Indeed, more children have been killed in Gaza than in all other conflicts for the last 4 years. Russia's illegal aggression in Ukraine over the last 2.5 years has resulted in the death of 11,500 civilians, including 630 children, from a population of 38 million. In Gaza, in less than a year, from a population of only 2 million, 40,000 civilians have died, more than 14,000 children have been killed. That is simply outrageous. It is completely unacceptable. In those circumstances, it's important that people know the Australian government has been resolute in its efforts to influence an end to the violence by continuing to speak and act and vote and apply sanction measures and join with like-minded nations in pushing for a ceasefire at every opportunity. Alongside that persistent effort, the Australian government has contributed more than $70 million in humanitarian funding. But I completely understand that as people see the bombing and suffering continue, their message to me and to all of us here is that's not enough. I accept that message because until the violence stops, all of us should be prepared to consider what more can be done to achieve a ceasefire. Deputy Speaker, I want to pay tribute to everyone who is part of activism in the cause of peace and non-violence. I'm grateful for the heartfelt commitment of the many groups and many more individuals who've reached out to me as part of that effort. The Perth Mums for Palestine and the Fremantle Palestine Group, Jews for Palestine and Doctors for Palestine, and the Australian Palestine Advocacy Network, and more than 1,000 individuals. Deputy Speaker, activism in the cause of peace is vital, and it's long been part of my life and long been a focus for my community. Activism as part of civil society engagement is an expression of our values as a democratic society, and we must remember that by its nature, activism will not be neat and tidy. Indeed, often it will be robust and noisy and provocative. You can't be an activist in the cause of peace and non-violence if your activism isn't undertaken in accordance with those values. And Deputy Speaker, all the groups I've mentioned have engaged with me wholeheartedly and stridently in pain and distress and frustration, which is completely understandable, but always peacefully and always with respect and in good faith, and I honour that. And their input will always shape my work in this place.